All right, here we are, guys. We are going to do Daniel chapter 7, part 2. We're going to finish it up with a little bit of review. But if I do like this, you can't see the pictures. But if I do like this, you can see the pictures. So there we go. All right, so we have some review to do because Daniel 7 is a big chapter, and there's a lot of things that we need to cover. All right, so we'll begin by looking at this. What's all this about? How did we get these pictures? Can you guys remember?
Yeah, Daniel was telling his dream. He had a dream and then he wrote it down.
Right. This is Daniel's dream. So far, we haven't had Daniel's dreams, have we? We've had other people dreaming and stuff like that. But now we're getting Daniel's dream. He dreamed about a lion that stood up, had the heart of a man and acted like a man, a beast that was leaning over on one side with ribs in its mouth, a leopard with 4 heads and 4 wings. Are leopards fast?
Harry.
Yeah, they're very fast. Would a leopard with 4 wings be faster?
Yes, probably.
Yeah, I think that's the idea. So it's a mega fast leopard, and then some sort of monster beast with horns that would stomp things, and an angrier horn that was saying stuff. Okay, those are the main parts of the dream, the really memorable parts, but one of the really important parts of this dream is this part right here. Oh, wait, still looking at me. Here we go. There were thrones that were brought out, and we said it sounds like it's God on this throne, and there were books for judgment. And even though this angry horn is yelling a bunch, there's judgment that's going to happen from these books, and that one is coming in the clouds to this one on the throne. Okay? I'm going to start reading here in verse 13 so you guys can listen in. I saw in the night visions, and behold, there came with the clouds of heaven one like unto a son of man, and he came even to the Ancient of Days. And so here we have the Son of Man, and that is one of the names that Jesus uses for himself in the Gospels. He calls himself Son of Man. And they brought him near before him, and there was given unto him dominion and glory and a kingdom. So I gave him a crown and a ruling scepter with a ball on top, I guess. And all the peoples and the nations and the language should serve him. His dominion was an everlasting dominion which will not pass away. Make sure it's focused. And his kingdom is that which shall not be destroyed. Zoom in a bit. As for me, Daniel, my spirit was grieved in the midst of my body, and the visions of my head troubled me. And I came near unto one that stood by, and asked him the truth of all this concerning this. So he made known unto me the interpretation of these things. So here's my big question. Daniel is having this dream. Hold on, come on. Okay, there we go. Daniel is having this dream. How does it make Daniel feel? How does he feel? Troubled. All right, so that means he has eyes, and they're like a little bit troubled, and maybe kind of a little bit of a worried mouth, right? He's kind of like this. I'm troubled. I don't like this. So he's having that kind of a dream. So he's all stressed out, and he's asking somebody to get an explanation about the dream. And so for the rest of this lesson, we're going to talk about this explanation. Explanation. Here we go. These great beasts, which are 4, okay? The 4 beasts, these great beasts, these 4 beasts we're in chapter 7, verse 17. Chapter 7, verse 17. They are 4 kings, which shall rise out of the earth. But the saints of the Most High will receive the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever and ever. That is a really tiny, tiny explanation. There's going to be more, but you have the lion, right? And then you had the bear with the ribs in his mouth. And you had the 4-headed leopard guy. And then you had the scary beast guy. 1, 2, 3. Oh, he has 7 noses. 4. Those 4 monster beasts are what? What are they? Kings. Kings and rule and power. But, saints of the Most High. Who are the saints of the Most High? Who are the saints of the Most High?
God's angels.
Not just God's angels, God's people. God's people. God's people. Most High, that's God. Saints are God's people. The God's people shall receive the kingdom and shall possess the kingdom forever and ever. So even though there are 4 scary monster beasts, God's people are going to have a kingdom. That's what this dream is supposed to be about. All right, we'll get some more details. Verse 19, chapter 7, verse 19. Then I desired to know the truth concerning the 4th beast, which was diverse or different from all of them, exceedingly terrible, whose teeth were of iron, his nails were of brass. Ooh, that's a new detail. Which devoured and broke in pieces and stamped the residue with his feet. And concerning the 10 horns which were on his head, and the other horn which came up, before which 3 fell, even that horn that had eyes and a mouth that spoke great things, whose look was more stout than his fellows, I beheld, and that same horn made war with the saints and prevailed against them until the Ancient of Days came, and the judgment was given to the saints of the Most High, and the time came that the saints possessed the kingdom. Okay, so there was a lot of details there, and we're going to draw this back there. So Daniel was given an explanation. These 4 beasts are 4 kings, 4 kingdoms. And then Daniel says, what about this one? Because this one's really weird. And this horn. So that's what we're going to draw now. We're going to draw and think about that last beast. Chair out of the way. Okay. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then 10. And then you gotta draw eyeballs that are scary, and your nose and teeth. All right, my kids have been using my markers. They're a little bit light now. So I'll give them a blue head and ears. And don't forget, he needs those elephant feet to stomp things. Oh, he needs bronze nails. Okay, so here's his hand, and he's got bronze fingernails sticking up from his nails. There we go. Okay, so there's the monster beast.
Don't forget iron teeth.
And on his head is a stouter or stronger horn. This one here. And it made 3 of the horns get broken off or pulled out. So you can draw like 3 bloody horns. And then I'm going to give it, I'll just give it blue. All right, here's its eyes. And it's angry, and it's yelling because it's an angry horn. And it's just blah, blah, I am a jerk. I'm a mean, angry horn. And, I mean, you look at the picture. I don't know if this is exactly what the dream looked like. But I would wonder what's going on with that guy. He's pretty weird. Okay. So Daniel is wondering about this. And it says that, okay, it was stamping stuff under its feet, and it had these brass fingernails. And then there was this one special horn. I'm going to read this again. That horn had eyes and a mouth and spoke great things. Probably means it was boasting. Not saying, oh, I have this great thing. I really like to love and to be caring for people. That's a great thing to say. I don't think that that's what the horn was saying. I think it was boasting. Who's, all right, I behold the same horn made war with the saints. The horn was, who are the saints again?
God's people.
No,
God's
actually,
people. God's people are the saints. So,
Yeah, my first thought was angels, but then maybe like prophets.
yeah, disciples and prophets. And so you can draw, here's 3 of God's people, and he is attacking them. Arrows. We'll just draw arrows, shoot down at them. And he is attacking these saints. And they're sad. I mean, good grief, this is not fun. They're throwing up their hands going, oh no, this is terrible. Ah! All right, so the saints are really sad. This horn is attacking the Christians or the Israelites. It's attacking God's people. And that horn prevails against them until the Ancient of Days comes. Who is the Ancient of Days?
Jesus.
God. The Ancient of Days is God. Now, Jesus is a part of God, so Jesus is a good answer. But usually when the phrase the Ancient of Days, that's God. He has always been around. He's the Ancient One of all days. So, and in the dream, what was God with? Can you remember back from when we studied it in our last class?
Someone who came down.
He was on a throne. Remember the throne, even the throne that was on fire? So, all right, so here's the throne. And then God is sitting on the throne. And the throne even, I don't know if you remember this, it had flaming wheels. And you can draw wheels of fire and flames, which is pretty cool.
That won't hurt him.
No, why do you think his throne is on fire?
So anyone who tries to sit in it will get burned.
Well, I think that's part of it. What does it mean about you if you are sitting in a throne of fire?
You're really important.
You're really strong and powerful. I wonder if I can turn off this light. Can you guys see really well still? Well, I don't know if that's good. I'll turn it back on. All right. So here comes the Ancient of Days. And when the Ancient of Days comes, then at that time, the saints possessed the kingdom. So the Ancient of Days comes in, and he stops this fighting, and he makes it so that they possess the kingdom. I'm drawing them, they're on grass. They're standing there as if they are okay because he has helped them to have joy. That marker doesn't mark at all. All right, and now I'm going to draw a happy face. I don't even know if you guys can see the happy faces on these guys. They're happy now. And so the horn was causing problems, and then the Ancient of Days comes, and he makes it good for them. He makes it right. Okay, Jack, what? No. All right, so here we have that part of the explanation of the dream. That's a big part, okay? But this is the idea that was going on, and we get a little bit more of the dream. Let's go back to screen sharing. Okay. Thus he said, the fourth beast shall be a fourth kingdom upon the earth. All right, we know that these beasts are kingdoms, right? Which shall be diverse or different from all the kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth. And so this beast with the iron teeth, right? How powerful is it going to be when it's on earth?
Gonna destroy the earth.
Yeah, it's going to try to eat all of the earth. That's one hungry beast, right? And now I'll draw a tongue sticking out. Sorry. So it is trying to eat and consume the whole earth. And it shall tread it down. It's going to stomp on it and break it to pieces. All right, so here's its elephant feet, and it's stomping on the ground, and it's going, and it's breaking everything up. Okay. And as for the 10 horns out of this kingdom shall 10 kings arise. So what do the 10 horns mean?
10 kingdoms.
Not 10 kingdoms, but 10 kings. So you got 10 horns equals 10 kings. So within this whole kingdom, there's going to be some different kings. And it's in particular going to have 10 kings. Do you guys recognize 10 horns being 10 kings?
Yeah.
When did we hear about 10 horns being 10 kings before?
Revelation.
In Revelation. Good job, Alice. That's exactly right. Is the book of Daniel starting to sound like Revelation?
Yeah.
Yeah, what was the question?
It was like the 10 horns had 10 crowns on it on Satan.
Yeah. So at least the number and the fact that it's horns and crowns, there's no crowns in this one, but wouldn't it make sense if they had crowns on them? It would fit, right? It's sounding a little bit similar. Now, what happened first in time? The book of Daniel's dreams or John's visions in the book of Revelation? What happened first in time?
Daniel's dreams.
Daniel's dreams. Daniel had these dreams long time before John had his visions from Jesus. So I wonder if when John was seeing this vision, he thought, this is a lot like Daniel. Isn't that cool? You guys are making connections the same way. That's awesome. All right, let's go back to reading. He shall be different. He's going to, okay, and then out of it shall arise another horn, and he shall be different from the former, and he shall put down 3 kings, and he shall speak words against the Most High, and he shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and he shall think to change the times and the law, and they shall be given into his hand a time and times and half a time.
That definitely sounds like Revelation.
We've heard time, times, and half a time before, haven't we?
Mm-hmm.
3.5. And half of 7. So this horn that's so loud and angry against all of God's people is going to rule God's people for 3.5, I don't know, usually you would say years, but 3.5 times. And that's a really neat connection to the book of Revelation. This is getting pretty cool. But the judgment shall sit, and they shall take away his dominion and to consume it and destroy it to the end. So what's going to happen to this horn? Eventually, remember how in the dream there was the books and everyone was judged based on things in the books? What's going to happen when this horn is judged based on the books?
It's going to get destroyed.
He's going to get destroyed. So I'm going to put an X through him. I'm not going to make it too strong because I want you to be able to see him. He's going to get destroyed. Is that similar to the book of Revelation?
Yep.
Judgment and destruction? Yeah. And the kingdom and the dominion and the greatness of the kingdoms under the whole heaven shall be given to the people of the saints of the Most High. His kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and all dominions shall serve and obey him. So who is going to get the rule and the throne and the power after the big horn is gone?
God.
God and God's people, right? Does that sound like the book of Revelation? Mm-hmm. Here is the end of the matter. As for me, Daniel, my thoughts much troubled me, and my countenance was changed in me, but I kept the matter in my heart. And that's the end of the chapter. Wow. Kind of a crazy dream. So Daniel has this dream. I'll draw Daniel. He's down here. He's sleeping. Here's his hands. And he's just sleeping like that. All right. He looks like a burrito laying down. And he's dreaming all this stuff that's happening. And he dreamed about 4 beasts. And the 4th beast had a really scary horn. And then the Ancient of Days comes, and don't forget, Jesus comes in the clouds. We don't have that in the second part of the story, but that did happen. Jesus comes, I'll draw a cloud. Here's Jesus in the clouds coming down. And then somebody tells Daniel what the dream means. That the 4 beasts are 4 kings and kingdoms, and kingdom number 4 is going to be very different. It's going to stomp everything. It's going to be really ugly. And it's going to have one horn. One horn.
Bad words and rude things.
Yeah, it's going to be a really bad horn. And it's even going to hurt the Christians. But the Ancient of Days will come and help the Christians are God's people. The Ancient of Days is going to come and help God's people. And eventually God's people will have a kingdom, and the kingdom will be forever. How does Daniel feel afterwards? He's alarmed. This is a really stressful dream. This is a really stressful dream. Can you imagine having this dream? Would you be stressed out?
Yeah.
I would be too. Even if I knew that God's people win in the end, it's kind of a scary dream, right? All right. Now I want to show you something a little bit interesting about the whole book of Daniel, or a big part of it. And that might help you get a good idea about this dream. Unfortunately, I got to erase some stuff too. I love God's throne that's on fire, but I got to erase it. I'll erase it. Okay. We are going to do a bit of a review of the whole book that we've done so far. In Daniel chapter 1, that is when Daniel decided to not eat the bad foods. Do you remember that story?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we'll say, we'll call it, and the reason he did it was because he was a Hebrew. He didn't want to eat the foods of the foreign foods and the unclean foods. He wanted to keep himself separate, all right? So that's the unclean food story. Unclean food. Okay? Can you guys see that all right on the board? Looks like
Yes.
it.
Forget to draw another.
So then I'm going to put number 2, and that was when Nebuchadnezzar had a dream about a statue. Okay? Remember the dream about the statue?
Mm-hmm.
And that is dream of statue. And do you remember what the dream about, what was the statue supposed to represent?
Kingdom.
4 kingdoms. 4 kingdoms. I ran out of space, so I'm writing 4 king. You get the idea, right? All right.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Daniel chapter 3, and I'm going to write it like this, a little bit in. Daniel chapter 3 was about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the fiery furnace. Remember that?
Yes.
And why did they get thrown into the fiery furnace?
Because they didn't bow down to the idol.
Right. It was about worship, right? They were only going to do holy worship. They weren't going to do evil worship. So I'm going to write worship and fiery furnace.
They were doing the right thing, but everyone else was worshiping a big hunk of metal.
Right. A big hunk of metal. So chapter 3 is about worship and fiery furnace, okay? And then there's chapter 4. I'm going to put it even farther in. And in chapter 4, that's the one where Nebuchadnezzar has a dream about a tree. And then it turns out that Nebuchadnezzar turns into a what?
A beast. A beast and wet from the dew of...
Right. So that is the one about a king who gets humbled. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
he was the strong king, and then he turned into a weird beast guy. And so that's about a king, and God humbles him. Okay? All right. That's about a king who God humbled. Now, chapter 5, you'll notice, is a little bit similar. In Daniel chapter 5, Belshazzar is having a dinner party using God's cups. And then he sees the handwriting on the wall. You guys are watching the handwriting on the wall this whole time, and you're not scared. Oh, well. So he sees the handwriting on the wall, and what does he find out?
He's gonna die.
He's gonna die. God humbles him because he was using God's cups for idol worship. Belshazzar is another king who God, what?
Humbled.
Humbled. Four and 5 are the same story written in different ways. Chapter 6 is about Daniel in the lion's den. Why did Daniel get thrown into the lion's den? Can you remember?
Because he kept praying when they made a law to not pray.
Yep. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were thrown in the fiery furnace because they wouldn't pray in a wrong way. Daniel gets thrown into the den of lions because he only prayed the right way. Again, it's worship. And then we just finished chapter 7. What is chapter 7 about?
His dream.
Dream about beasts. How many? 4. Dream of beasts. And we found out that those 4 beasts are actually 4
King.
kings. And then we'll start studying chapter 8 through 12 later on, okay? Chapter 2, Dream of Statue, which is 4 kings. Chapter 7, Dream of Beast, which is 4 kings. Chapter 3, Worship Fiery Furnace. Chapter 6, Worship Lion's Den. Chapter 4 and 5, Kings Humbled. Do you see that pattern?
Yes.
Isn't that cool? It repeats itself backwards. If you want to be sound like you're important and you know what you're talking about, this is called a chiasm. You'll notice that it comes in like this, right? See how it kind of goes in? Oh, you can barely see that color. Hold on. Can you see the orange better on the screen?
Yeah.
All right.
That's so weird.
And if you do, let's just take the orange. If you take the orange all the way out, it makes what letter?
X.
A letter X, right? Now, the Greek name for the letter X is chi. So they call this a chiasm because the pattern, it's half of that X. It goes in and then it comes out. And
That's
look at
cool.
this. Isn't that cool? It's too perfect. Now, in the Bible, especially in Psalms, because a psalm is a poem, and a poem can have that repetitive idea, you see chiasms a bunch of times. And sometimes people go, oh, I think I found a chiasm. And you scratch your head, I don't know. Why does it look like a chiasm to me? This is why I think we have extra proof that this chiasm exists in the book of Daniel. In Daniel chapter 2, in verse 4, I'm going to go back and I'm going to reread that little bit. What was Daniel chapter 2 about? I just wrote it on the board.
Dream of statue, 4 kingdoms.
Dream of statue and 4 kingdoms, right? So at the beginning of Daniel chapter 2, it says, oh, hold on. There we go. In the second year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, he has this dream. In verse 2, he calls all the enchanters. In verse 3, the king said, I had a dream, and my spirit is troubled to know the dream. And then this is something really interesting in verse 4. In verse 4, it says, Then the Chaldeans said to the king in Aramaic, O king, live forever. Tell your servants the dream. Okay, that sounds kind of boring. What language did they say that to the king? In Aramaic. Is that the language of God's people in Israel? No. So it makes sense. They're in a foreign country, and so they would say it in Aramaic. But guess what? Starting from that point, they said in Aramaic, the language that the book of Daniel was written in changes to Aramaic. And the rest of chapters 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 are written in Aramaic. And then in chapter 8, it goes back to Hebrew. So this is kind of cool. I think this is just so fun in the Bible. This is Hebrew. And these are Hebrew. But everything right there in that chiasm is Aramaic.
That is so weirdly awesome.
Isn't that cool? Isn't that neat? I think that this is such a cool pattern.
It's
So
weird
one
that
of the
you can find that kind of thing. It's weird that you can find that kind of thing in the Bible.
Yeah. I think this is something that God gave us because patterns help us learn. Patterns are exciting. Like when you see a pattern like this, you get really excited to see the connections. And so here's something. Do you think the understanding of of chapter 2 and chapters 10 should be similar? If this is about 4 kings, do you think it might be about the same 4 kings in chapter 7? I think so. That's a clue that was put into the book of Daniel to help us to see it as a whole perfect picture.
Mr. Dan,
Yeah, what's your question?
did you say like chapters 2 through 7 were written in Aramaic?
Yep. And in chapter 8, it goes right back to Hebrew.
Wow.
Now, chapter 1 was in Hebrew, and I think it's because it's a chapter of some Hebrew boys trying to eat good Hebrew food and not the foreign stuff. So it makes sense. That's a book about Jewish people being Jewish. And starting in chapter 8, it's going to be dreams and visions and a prayer of Daniel the Hebrew dreaming things that God wants him to know for the Hebrew people. Isn't that cool?
That's really cool.
This is one of my favorite parts of the whole Bible, that you can find this kind of a pattern. It also makes it kind of exciting. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego have their exciting chapter, and then Daniel has his exciting chapter. King Nebuchadnezzar is humbled, but at the end of it, he loves God. Belshazzar is humbled, and at the end of it, he doesn't love God.
Because he's killed.
Yeah, or it doesn't sound like he turns to love God. And so it's interesting. There are some differences about it. As we continue through more of the dreams in Daniel, you're going to find out that these dreams and visions are very similar to the book of Revelation. In fact, I think that this 4th beast is the Roman Empire that was the big problem during the book of Revelation. And we can see some clues, and we can talk about that as we go on. Okay, do you guys have any other questions about Daniel chapter 7 and the understanding of this dream?
Can I show my picture?
So,
Can I show my
All right, well, in that case, I think I am going to sign off. I'll talk to you later, guys. Bye-bye.